In this project, we're going to create a page that includes tables and forms. To start off with, I have created a new folder called tables-forms, and in it I put a background image. You could also use one that you find off of the internet using the web address if you'd like. So first thing we'll do is create a new page. Go to File, New, and we're going to do a Save As and put that in that same folder we just created and name it index.html. With that being done, we now need to put our HTML skeleton. You can either type it in, or if you've used your extensions and added the HTML skeleton, you can go ahead and click that and create a full skeleton. With that being done, I'm going to go ahead and remove this JavaScript piece because we're not going to need that. We're not going to need this CSS stuff yet, or this stuff. So let's just make this nice and simple. Then you'll go in and put your name and the name of the project, and go ahead and save that, and we're going to launch it and make this thing live so we can see what we're doing as we work and put them side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and drag it and drop it over there. In the end, your project will look something like this. You'll have whatever background you want, whatever colors you want, customize it, but it'll have similar elements. It'll have a form, it'll have a table with some content, and things like that. Make sure you check the rubric to include all the parts that you need to as you go along. So the first thing that we're going to do here is go ahead and put in a background color and a background image. So to do that, we'll come in to the body, and we're going to first put in our background image. So I'm going to put in my style equals quotes. I put in background image. This is going to, I'm going to actually pull the one straight out of my folder and use that. But you could also find one online, which is, this is the same image. You could right click and you could copy the image address. And that's basically like opening it in a new tab. So that is just the address to where that image lives. So you could use that if you would like to. In my case, I'm just going to say image, and from there I'm going to go ahead and put in background dot, not sure what it is, so let's check the properties. It's a JPEG file. So background.jpg, we'll save it, and nothing happens. So we put in URL, and there we go, we fixed it. So background image URL. That's where it lives, the address of the image. So there's my background image. Looks fine. Next thing you want to do is put a semicolon to close that, is give it a background color that's a similar color to this. So in case the background image breaks, you still have a background color that's similar to that color, and then you can still see the text. So put in a background color. Some sort of gray. Light gray looks good. And that way, if this breaks for some reason, you see it's still a similar color. So that looks great. Okay, next part that we're going to need to do is put in an H1 header. So let's do that real quick. Let's make a contact form. And from there, I'm going to actually use Google Fonts on this, which is part of that. You need at least use one Google font. So let's go to Google Fonts and find something that looks interesting. I'm going to go ahead and go to categories, and I'm going to uncheck everything except for display to give me more unique type fonts here. I like this one. Let's use this. So I'm going to go ahead and add that, and let's go ahead and open it up. I'm going to take this so that it knows where to get this font from. I'm going to put that somewhere in the head tag here. So as long as it's between the head tags, you're okay. And then I'm going to use this in any place I want it to look like that specific font. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So here on my contact form, I'm going to style equals quotes, and then paste that in font family. You can see that it already turned that so it looks like that. Something else I'm going to do here is I'm going to put it in the center. So I'm going to do a text align center. And now it's in the center. The form looks pretty good. Below that, maybe I'll put a horizontal rule, put a little line break, and then we'll start putting stuff below that. So next part is to actually start creating tables. To create a table, you need to use table tags. So let's go ahead and do an opening and closing table tag. Split those apart. Every single time, every row that you create is a TR tag, table row tag, and every spot or column inside of that row is a TD or table data tag. Like that. All right, and you can have as many spots in the row as you want. So we're going to go ahead and put a few in each. And I'm going to go ahead and, in fact, let's put one more. And I'm going to take this and copy it and paste it just so this hopefully makes a little more sense. So just so you can see this, we'll put some things into the table. It needs to actually have some content. So I'm going to go ahead and save. You can see it sitting here. All you see is numbers though. And that's because it doesn't actually have a border. There's a better way to do this with CSS, and we'll do that in the near future. But for now, we're going to do it an old way, and this is a way you probably shouldn't do it. But since we haven't learned CSS, just put in border, and we're going to put in one. And we're going to save that, and you can see that it now actually has borders, right? So from there, we can do a few things with this table. Next piece is, let's see if we put a width on, well, let's just leave it like that. Next piece is to talk maybe about headers. So you could have table heads up here, right? And that would make it, you wouldn't even need a row if you used table head. So let's go ahead and get rid of this table row. A table head is the top of the table, right? It's your information that's above each column, and it will bold it by default. So it'll look something like that, right? We'll just bold those is all that it does. For now, I'm actually going to leave those off, so I'll just leave it how it was. Now, something else that we can do is combine cells within a table. So for example, here we've got a table row, and if we wanted to make, if we wanted to combine 2, 3, and 4, we can do that. Let me zoom in just a little bit to make this easier to see. So 2, 3, and 4, here's how we would do that. So we would go here to 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to take out 3 and 4 completely. We don't need those. And this is going to take up the spot of 2, 3, and 4. So inside of there, we're going to put call span for column span. How many columns will it span? And in this case, it's going to be 2, 3, and 4. So it's 3. And you can see that now takes up the spot of all 3 of those table data or columns. You can do the same thing with rows. So maybe let's combine 5 and 9 here. So in order to do that, you have to look in a couple spots. So we're actually going to come here to right here where it says 5. Okay. And we're going to take one of those out. So we'll take out the bottom one. We're going to take out 8 in this case. So that's now one less. It's got an extra spot there. In fact, we're going to leave that one there. We're going to come down here and take out 12 instead. And then on number 5 right here, we're going to put in a row span, and we're going to take up 2 spots for the row. So it'll actually come down 2 spots. So it will span 2 rows, if that makes any sense. So you can combine cells as needed that way. Now, you can also create forms, which are really important. There are ways for websites to collect data to send back to a business or somebody. And you can actually create yours inside of your cells by combining it and things like that. as you add more content to your cells, you'll see that it stretches. If I put in a break and I keep typing, it'll go to a new line. So they'll actually stretch to fit as needed. But just for the sake of time, I'm not going to put mine in a table, but you will need at least 2 tables on your project. So in order to create a form, you need to have form tags. Every part of the form needs to be in between these 2 tags. So the first type that we're going to do is called an input. Okay. Basically, what that does is allow somebody to type something into your form. So input, in this case, it will be text, or the type will be text. And then you are going to just close it, self-closing, and you hit save, and you'll notice that it shows up here. I want to actually create a little bit of space, so I'm going to put in a break up there to push it down just a little bit, and maybe we'll put in an H2 and call this form or something like that. But here it is, right? It doesn't say anything. If you wanted to put something above it like name, you could, but you can see I can type something into that and it works, right? So that is text. Now, or if you want to also alter the size of it and give it a specific size, you can put in size. Maybe we'll say 40, and you can see it gets larger. 20, right? So you can tell it a size. Now I'm going to put a break in after that to give it some space, and we're going to do the next one, okay? Also, this is an input, self-closing, and then we're going to put in type, and we're putting in radio buttons this time, right? So I go ahead and give this a name. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this line a couple of times, and you can see that gives me those radio buttons. I'm also going to push them so they go down. In fact, let's just leave them like that. And just like before, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in another break here just to get a little bit of space. So by default, you can just click on all these buttons if you don't put in the right things. Radio buttons should only allow you to select one, however. So let's quickly change these. I'll put in a couple more of my classes. All right, so you got several classes. Now what you need to do is give them a name so that they recognize they're in the same group and you can only pick one. So in addition to saying, hey, you're a radio button, you also need to put in a name. In this case, we'll call it class because these are my classes. So I'll just take that and I will paste that into all of them. And now when I select one and I click on the next one, you'll notice it will only allow me to select one of that group. If I were to change that to something else and save it, now I can only pick one of those 3, but as soon as I pick the name that's different, it'll allow me to select it as well. So that's the point of having those classes. So those are radio buttons. Okay, let's put in a couple of breaks here. And then we'll go down to the next spot, and this time we're going to do checkboxes. So once again, it's input. And there it is, checkbox. And then you just need to put in whatever you want it to be. I'm going to duplicate that. And you can have as many checkboxes as you'd like, and the characteristic of checkboxes is that you can select multiple. So maybe this is like, hey, what was your favorite class? And you pick whatever one it was. And this one's like, which classes have you taken? So you can actually select multiple. So checkboxes are supposed to be for multiple, radio buttons are for just one. Next is a button. So let's go ahead and put a button in. Once again, it's input, and we'll put in type. And this one's a button. And then whatever you put in for value is what's going to appear on the button itself. So let's put in website. I'll go ahead and hit save, and you'll see that it's actually a button. When I go to it. I can actually click on it. Doesn't do anything at the moment. Let's go ahead and push that down with some breaks as well. So if you wanted this to actually go somewhere, you could surround it in anchor tags. So if we go ahead and put in A tags, and put in a website, and then move that closing anchor tag to the end. So the whole button is surrounded in those. Now when I click on this, it's actually going to take me to that website. And remember, if you don't want it to go straight to that website, you could also put in a target of blank. And now when I go ahead and click on that, let's relaunch it, it'll open it up in a new tab. So that's how you create a button. The next piece is submit and reset buttons. So maybe we've typed a bunch of things into the form and we want to submit it so it goes to the place, or just to completely clear the form. There's two different types of buttons you can do for that. Let me put in some breaks here again. So input, type, and this one is specifically a submit. Okay, and you can put in a value if you want it to be something to say other than submit. You could put in a value for what you want it to say. Send form, something like that. And then let's do another one, which will basically be the same thing, but this will be reset. And this will actually just clear the form instead of sending it somewhere. So I've got two different ones. Now these two have to be inside of the form tags or else they're not going to clear the form. So make sure they're there, but if I go ahead and type some things in this and I hit send, you'll notice it sends it, it flashes and clears it. If I do the same thing and I hit clear, it just erases everything and lets me start over. The last one that we're going to look at, in fact there's two more, so let's go back above these buttons, is a drop-down list. So this one is different. This has select tags. There are two select tags. Let's go ahead and put a couple of breaks after this just to push the buttons down. Two select tags, and then every drop-down item that you want to have is going to live inside of option tags. Like this. So maybe it's asking you what grade level you are. Something like that, and it's on sophomore, so maybe you don't want it to be on sophomore by default. So let's copy that and push it down, and we'll save it. We'll say and he says select one, so you go ahead and click on it, and then you've got options you can click on, and there it is. You can clear it, you can send it, that type of thing. So that is a drop-down list using selects. And then the last one to show you is a text area, which is kind of like the type here, the input, where you can just type a single line, but it allows you to type more. So let's go ahead and put that in. That would be text area. And it's got an opening and closing tag, just like the other did. There's actually really nothing that's going to go in between these tags, so I'm going to leave them together. Although I am going to put a couple of breaks in, just like before. Push those tags down, and the buttons. And then inside of it, you have some options. So you can see by default, this is the size. So I have multiple lines I can type. I can also click on this and stretch it out. But if you wanted a certain size to start with, you can put in rows. And you can also put in columns. Or calls. And when I save that, now it is that size by default. Now, you can put something in called a placeholder, which will give instructions. So instead of putting text above these fields to tell what they are, you could actually type inside the boxes themselves. So like on this, for example, I could put in a placeholder and put in full name. And then as soon as I click on that field and start typing, you'll see it goes away, but it gives me instructions as to what to put there to start with. Maybe in this text area, let's put a placeholder and put in comments. Okay. Now another way you can split your form into sections is by using field sets. So maybe we want to put, instead of having this form here, let's take that out. We want to have a box or a border around the entire form. So we're going to go ahead and put in something called a field set. And then I'm going to take this piece of the field set, and I'm going to put it below the form. And when I say that, you'll see there's a box or a border around the entire form now. And then one other thing I could add is just inside of the top field set, I could put a legend. And that will basically give it some sort of text. Put in class form or something like that, and you can see that shows up inside of the border so you know what that is. And you could even put that around each section or however you want. But that's field sets and legends. So that is how to create tables and how to create forms. This form will actually not really send anywhere at this point, but it would work if you put a couple other things into it. When you're finished with the project, if you have multiple files like I do, then you will need to go to the containing folder, right-click, and send it to a zipped folder. And that will put both those files and zip them in a folder, and that's what you'll submit to Canvas. If you just referenced images from the internet and use their address, then all you'll need to turn in is the HTML file.